how would you define the relationship between failure and success?
Well, you just don't dwell on the failure. That's all there's to it. It's part of life, no question. But you just pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and go on. I mean, definitely. And you look at the positive side of failure is that you learn. You learn something. I made mistakes, of course. But as long as I felt that I learned something, that's a positive. So you just keep looking at the positive side of even the failures.
Welcome to Charge Forward Coaching, the podcast for committed athletes and individuals who want to achieve more on and off the field. Hosted by James Blasco, certified mental toughness and resilience coach. You'll gain insights and inspiration from elite athletes, coaches, and others who know what it takes to excel. Are you ready to go to the next level? Then tune in, get inspired, and let's charge forward. Now here's your host, James Blasco.
Hi, and welcome to the Charge Forward Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, James Blasco, and today is a super special day for me because I get to have a nice discussion with one of the most iconic, not just race car drivers, but sports folks in the world, Mario Andretti. So Mario, welcome to the show.
Thank you, James. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So
neighbor.
As I've been, old neighbors. We'll have to get together for a barbecue at some point. So in leading up to this podcast, I read so much about you. I wanted to make sure I knew the history, but I wanted to make sure that I had as much as I possibly could. And one of the quotes, you made a quote one time about why you were so motivated to race. And you said it was all about love and passion for racing. What made you fall in love with racing as a kid in Italy and then coming over to the United States?
Well, James, that's actually a good question. But it's amazing that considering what was happening at the time, in my life and in our family's life, it was just at the start of World War II when I was born. And then, of course, that's, before I became a teenager, I knew of nothing but war. And so there were a lot of uncertainties. But why did my twin brother Aldo and I gravitated to motor racing? I don't know, but we did. And that's because the beginning of Formula One was in 1950 at our age 10, and officially. And of course, Italy was very prominent in Formula One right from the beginning. Matter of fact, the first world champion was Nino Farina, Alfa Romeo, and then consequently you have the next world champion was Alberto Ascari, who became actually my big hero in life and my inspiration. So that's it. I mean, somehow and after witnessing that, the Italian Grand Prix, 1954, at age 14, the mold was cast. There was no plan B to go after anymore. And Aldo and I, even though at the time was absolutely the impossible dream because of the situation, but that's it. I mean, and to pursue the impossible dream, obviously, takes just tremendous amount of desire to overcome what overall seemed like you're surrounded with negatives, if you will. And that's the way it was with us. And the minute that we got the opportunity, once we came to America, Aldo and I immediately, we found there was a racetrack right here in Nazareth. And 2 years after arriving here, we assembled some good buddies around, and we started building our own car to start racing here. Even though we were underage, we had to we had to fudge. There was Les Young was the editor of the Nazareth Key, the Nazareth paper, and we befriended him. And through my uncle's gas station there, the Sunoco station at the end of town. And so we asked Les, he said, you have to do something with our birth date. We fudged that, and voila, we were 21 instead of 19 all of a sudden. And we started racing. And my career actually began 1959, and my last race, competitive race, professional race, was at 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2000, which I was 60 years old then, from 19 to 60.
Yeah, that's a long journey, and that's one of the things I was thinking about as I was, doing the reading and listening to your other interviews. From the beginning, it was your life. There was really no off season, and what really amazed me was you raced in so many different disciplines, so many different races around the world, and it was pretty much year round. And you had your successes and failures. How in the world did you keep up mentally and physically all those years with that kind of pace?
James, desire, and desire. That's it. I mean, and the passion. I was just driven by that, and nothing stood in my way. Obviously, I had a young family, and thank goodness I had a wonderful wife that, even though she was not really a race fan when I met her, in any way, but she came into my life, and she never made me feel guilty for being so selfish and spending so much time, which I didn't have to do all the races that I did. I could have just concentrated on one discipline, which many drivers do, their entire career, a la, say, Richard Petty, for instance. And but I was curious. I could never get enough. So the bottom line is, I probably didn't get to spend as much quality time as I probably could have, even with my young kids, my young children. But I had the support, the unwavering support from the end. And looking back later on in life, when you get a chance to reflect on things, I just then realized how important that was for me, and how necessary also was to keep my mind clear and not to have distractions, and concentrate exactly on what I love and what I wanted to do and what I wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, I actually circled that in my notes. You brought that up in another interview about being able to focus and commit your time and thoughts to what you were doing, and that was a big part of your success. Racing is obviously dangerous to this day, but back in the 50s and 60s and even 70s, it was wildly dangerous. I think something like 4 to 6 drivers a year were killed. I know you had good friends that, were lost. So what is the mindset when you get into the race car every time, whether it's you're racing or testing or whatever, and you're trying to compete at the highest level, but something horrible like that could happen when you get in a race car? What do you think, and how do you control that emotionally?
Well, it's a good point you're making. And the bottom line is, you don't pay a lot of attention to the negatives. In other words, you take that out of your mind. You just don't reflect on that. If you did on that, reflect on that side, you might as well stay home or just pursue a different career entirely. As you said, for sure, in those decades of my career, 60s, 70s, even 80s, well, all along until really the 2000s, the safety aspect, was not what we're enjoying today. And the sport was cruel, in so many ways. But you just don't reflect, or you don't on the negatives, and dwell on the negatives, I should say. And that's what kept me going. I lost friends during the race immediately, and I had to keep going. And I've been asked that question: how can you do that? Well, I think my friend would have done the same. That's how I used to justify that. And it's a fair question, but I think my desire to do what I was doing overcame all of it. Uh, and it was bigger than all of it. And all those, again, potential negatives and definitely could have been distractions. So, I don't know how you can actually totally explain that. It's thing that only I experienced. But again, just the love for what I was doing. I couldn't have anything stand in the way of me pursuing my goals. That's what it was.
And in pursuing your goals, clearly there was a lot of confidence. My question is, was the confidence there from the beginning, or is that something that grew as you found success, as you worked through, the challenges, or were you just from the beginning a very confident person?
Well, you have to be confident. And because, my physical size, especially in those days where you didn't have all of mechanical, technical help that you have today in a race car, they told you had to be some sort of a giant, to be able to wrestle those cars, especially those dirt cars. And I did. I experienced to be refused uh, twice, on the grounds that I don't think you could handle that, and I had to prove my way all the way. And I'll tell you what, I had, and my first opportunity to do exactly that was at a track. I don't know, you probably will know Langhorne,
Yep.
Pennsylvania, which was probably one of the, let me just say, the deadliest dirt tracks that we had in the country. In its life, it claimed 52 lives. And because of the fact that you're always turning all the way around. And so from the standpoint of stamina, that's the place that really tested every bit of it. And I raced there. That was my first dirt track race in a champ car. And I was the first car to finish the race without the power steering. There's some cars that had power steering. And I finished seventh, but to me it was a victory in itself because I proved the point. And actually, I was already had a ride with the Dean Van Lines team, but Clint Bronner, the chief mechanic, lost Jimmy Bryan the year before, was killed at Langhorne. He didn't want me to start driving for him at Langhorne, so I drove for somebody else, and I had a ride with somebody else, and I beat the guy, Bob Madhausen, that was driving the Dean Van Lines car. I finished seventh, he finished ninth. and so, coming back to confidence, you have to prove it to yourself too. But I had the mindset that, I can do this. Otherwise, I wouldn't even, why would I be thinking about it? I know I can do it. And you just do it. I mean, my hands, it was like hamburger, They don't get blisters nowadays. We still get normally to get blisters, after the race like that. And I love that because, this is a day's work.
Yeah.
Again, those are some of the events or moments where all of a sudden it justifies your confidence, the time. So you said to yourself you could do it, and you did it. And there's no better, result than that. And I had to keep proving myself. You always have to, obviously. Even sometimes you're labeled this and that. Well, prove it. Okay. So you go prove it. And, it's like going back to the first opportunity that I had to drive a Formula One car was at the U.S. Grand Prix in Watkins Glen, 1968. And it's let's see, an American guy, we'll do, with the Lotus. Unfortunately, I was with the Lotus team and so forth. My very first race, and I put the car on pole. And I said, well, he knows what, I had never seen Watkins Glen before. I never tested, never ran there. And who was alongside of me was Jackie Stewart, current world champion. You see what I mean? So something like that, what it gives you, it makes you feel, you know what, I belong here. I think I belong here. And it gives you just the type of, again, as you say, confidence that you need to be able to pursue and continue pursuing. These are the moments that have been so valuable in my life and my career, to justify all of the effort that I was putting into it.
It's so amazing. The guys you raced against and the tracks and the cars, it's totally amazing. And one of the things that jumped out was, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that whether it's, they're racing or it's their career, they go through challenges and they have defeats and they have these struggles. And over time, it just wears them down and they kind of quit. How would you define the relationship between failure and success?
Well, you just don't dwell on the failure. That's all there's to it. It's part of life, no question. But you just pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and go on. I mean, definitely. And you look at the positive side of failure is that you learn. You learn something. I made mistakes, of course. But as long as I felt that I learned something, that's a positive. So you just keep looking at the positive side of even the failures. It's all about mindset, James, and it's you have to realize, that's what the world is all about. It's you're going to experience a little bit of everything. There's always going to be a ripple on the road, and the one thing that I realized early on, that anything worthwhile accomplishing in life is going to take a lot of work, a lot of effort, and nothing will come easy. But that's what gives you the ultimate satisfaction if you finally achieve your most ambitious goal. That's all there's to it.
Yeah, I think you would be the poster child for the mindset, the champion mindset. It's one of the reasons, I wanted to talk to you. Speaking of confidence, F1, the new team, how confident are you going into that next year?
Well, I think all we know is that we're trying to surround ourselves with the best people available at the time. And we always keep our options open to see whether, we can assume, bring on somebody else. We keep that option always open because we know what's important. It's all about people at the end of the day. And we have to be realistic. We're doing our level best at the time. And if we don't succeed to the level that we expect immediately, we'll keep working, because we know it's there. And everybody else had to do it. And so again, it's all about just keep striving for your goals. And I'll repeat myself, nothing worthwhile will ever be easy, but when you accomplish it, it was worthwhile.
Absolutely. I have this sneaky feeling that you're going to be super successful, but we'll wait and see. Can't wait to watch.
Yeah.
Speaking of being successful, so the Lehigh Valley, we talked right before we jumped on, we're both from up in the Lehigh Valley. I'm down here in Florida now in Daytona. There's a lot of successful people from the Lehigh Valley. You got yourself and your family, Michael, and Larry Holmes, the heavyweight champion, and Saquon Barkley, and the list goes on and on. We have a lot of actors, Lee Iacocca. What do you think's in the water in the Lehigh Valley?
We don't want to give it away. I don't want to tell you the secret.
If they could bottle it up, it's really amazing.
Keep drinking.
That's right. That's right. Really just one last question. It might be the most important question of all. What was better, winning the Formula One championship, the Indy 500, the Daytona 500, or breaking 100 at Augusta?
Yeah, you know that one. That's history.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's coming up too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, every one of these events have their moment, and it's almost impossible to qualify. Okay, the Indy 500, that's one race. I'm looking at the championship, and quite honestly, James, I was 14 years old when the dream really, really began, and what was my wish? To become world champion, like Alberto Ascari was. Guess where I clinched the world championship? In Monza,
Yeah.
1978. I won Monza the year before. I won that day too, but we got penalized for jumping the start, which I didn't. Gio Villeneuve did. You know, we were going to protest it, but since my teammate Ronnie Peterson was killed at the start of that race, I didn't have the, into me to follow through. But anyway, just to get back to what's important to your question, Monza winning the world championship, that had to be the moment of my life, because can you imagine, how could I have known it then at age 14? That's what's going to happen. I even won the 1,000-kilometer sports car race there for Alfa Romeo in 1974. So you could see, just have that opportunity. And my very last race in Formula One was Ferrari.
Yeah.
Substituting, for Didier Pironi in Monza, and put the car on pole, and things like that, get a smile from Mr. Ferrari. Again, I have so much to be thankful for, and as you say, these are the moments that I have thrived on in my whole life, and I feel that I've been so blessed.
Absolutely. And Mario, just thank you for joining me today. You're one of my heroes for sure. I know you're the hero to millions of folks out there, whether they're into racing or not. And I just wish you and your family and your Formula One team the very, very best. And thanks again for joining the podcast.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jay.
Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Charge Forward Coaching. Remember, the journey to greatness is built on mental toughness and consistent effort. So head on over to chargeforwardcoaching.com and book a free discovery call to take the next step in your journey. Until next time, stay focused, stay determined, and keep charging forward.